It's perfectly normal for your blood sugar to spike after you eat. You eat, your body breaks down your food into sugar, which enters your bloodstream. So it only makes sense that your blood sugar rises after you eat. It's what happens next that matters. Your body should release insulin to move that sugar into cells where it's needed and brings things back to baseline. Of course, that's not the whole story, so stay tuned to learn what's normal, what's not, and how you can prevent unhealthy blood sugar spikes and maintain stable energy. Spoiler alert, food is not the only factor in this equation. Healthy isn't just what you do, it's who you become. I'm Dr. Vicki, and this is Healthy Looks Great on You, a lifestyle medicine podcast to help you reclaim your energy, your focus, and your well-being. Life tested, doctor approved. When it comes to blood sugar spikes, all foods are not created equal. Protein and fats do not cause a direct blood sugar spike like carbohydrates do. And the carbs aren't created equal either. There are good carbs, bad carbs, complex carbs, simple carbs, fast carbs, and slow carbs. It kind of reminds me of the Dr. Seuss book, Red Fish, Blue Fish. Some are sad and some are glad and some are very, very bad. Why are they sad and glad and bad? I do not know. Go ask your dad. Today, instead of asking your dad, you can go straight to mini medical school and learn how to prevent blood sugar spikes while enjoying a diet with tasty carbs. You know, my dad was the inspiration for mini medical school. He never finished college, but he was really smart, and I think he enjoyed learning too, though he didn't really have a lot of opportunity. When I was studying anatomy, physiology, and pathology night and day, I heard about a program at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences called Mini Medical School. While most programs that provide surface-level medical education are typically for high school students, this program offered educational seminars for adults to learn about medical topics. And from the online discussions I see, we could use a lot more education for adults in this space. I gave the information to my dad, and he drove to Little Rock once a week. I'm not really sure what he learned, but recently I found his certificate of completion in my attic. And I thought maybe I should get it framed and hang it below the 2 MD diplomas hanging in my office. My husband's a doctor too. Since you're listening to this podcast, I assume you also like to learn. So let's jump in. Though it's normal for your blood sugar to spike for an hour or two after eating, levels typically don't go above 140. Unless you have diabetes. And pre-diabetics can top out around 199. But if you're hitting over 200, then you might have diabetes. Not necessarily, but you need to be evaluated by your healthcare provider. Oh, you don't have a glucose monitor, so you don't know what your blood sugar is after eating, but you're wondering if you're having abnormal blood sugar spikes because you feel like you crash? Okay. Then let's examine the symptoms. Blood sugar spikes can make you feel blah. That's a very important medical term you need to know. Blah. You know, zero energy, just blah. In addition, you may have a headache or feel foggy-headed. And it's not just blood sugar spikes that can cause it. The crashes can feel even worse. Blah, plus fatigue, accompanied by feeling shaky and dizzy, foggy, sweaty, and hungry, or you may be familiar with the term hangry, which refers to the irritability that comes with a sudden blood sugar drop. And the number that it drops to might not even be abnormal, but the speed in which it gets there can produce the same symptoms as if your blood sugar had dropped below normal, which is around 70. And since you drove all the way here to mini medical school, and your kids may someday find your certificate in the attic, let's do a quick review of insulin's job description. Insulin is a hormone made in the pancreas. It gets released when blood sugar levels go up, and it acts like a key in the door, opening the cells so that glucose can get in there and provide fuel for the cells. Problem is, sometimes it overshoots and causes those sudden drops that feel worse than the 80-mile-an-hour drop from the 500-foot roller coaster. That can make you wonder if that funnel cake was even worth it. All that refined flour with the nutrients and fiber stripped away, topped with powdered sugar that sticks to the grease it was fried in, and you've got yourself a recipe for a blood sugar spiking crash, even if you're not diabetic or you never rode the runaway mine train. Before we play good carb, bad carb, let's talk about other things that can spike your blood sugar, like lack of sleep. No pressure, but even one night of poor sleep causes your cortisol levels to go up, which affects your cravings and metabolism in a big way, but not the right way. It triggers the liver to add to the glucose load already in your bloodstream. Plus, insulin doesn't work as well because the cells don't respond as easily. It's like there's a do not disturb sign on the door and the lock is a little stuck. That makes the sugar in your bloodstream linger a little longer. You don't sleep and you wake up tired, so you drink an extra cup of coffee and boom, caffeine causes adrenaline levels to go up, which also reduces insulin sensitivity and increases the release of glucose from the liver. Geez, this is getting worse by the minute. Adding a little cream or sugar to your coffee is like adding kerosene to a campfire, and blood sugar levels continue to rise. Now, let me just stop and say, if you know me at all, you know I love my coffee. And fortunately, studies do show that the risk of developing type 2 diabetes is actually lower in coffee drinkers. So I'm not warning you about coffee. That would be terribly stressful. And stress raises blood sugar too. Same song, third verse, but it only gets louder and a little bit worse. When you're stressed, cortisol and adrenaline do their thing and tell the liver to top off the sugar level in the bloodstream. And they tell the cells to bar the door against insulin so the sugar hangs around longer. On top of that, when you're stressed, you don't sleep as well, and while resistance to insulin goes up, resistance to temptation goes down. Whatever your vice, more sweets, saturated fats, or alcohol, giving in only perpetuates the cycle. In other words, the bad carb's going to be calling your name. But do carbs really deserve their reputation as bad? Well, some do and some don't. We could just call the bad ones simple. Things like pure sugar or foods with added sugar, whether it's natural, like honey, or processed, like high fructose corn syrup. These simple sugars are often found in sodas, cookies, cakes, candy, and even vitamins if you're using the gummies. Yogurt is often sweetened with simple sugars. And yes, granola bars and protein bars and powders and shakes too. Just when you thought you were doing something good for your body. But it's not just the sweets, it's also refined grains, where the fiber and nutrients have been stripped away. Your body will take a biscuit and turn it into sugar, even if you don't slather it with jelly or jam. And even though bad carbs are called simple, that doesn't mean that good carbs have to be complicated. There are some swaps that can make a difference. For example, you could eat a complex carb that comes from whole wheat bread or pasta instead of enriched wheat. But not multigrain, that's a marketing buzzword, and it doesn't mean it's whole grain. One way to make a difference is to skip drinking fruit juice, which is full of sugar, but unlike whole fruit, it doesn't have the fiber. And depending on your soda of choice, you could be drinking 36 to 46 grams of sugar in one can. And goodness, if you're drinking a 20-ounce bottle, you're getting up to 77 grams, which is the equivalent of 20 teaspoons of sugar, more than 3 times the 6 teaspoon a day limit recommended for women. So next time you reach for a soda, think about how fast those numbers add up, and your body may ask for water instead. Now personally, I don't like plain water, so I drink sparkling water with flavor. Though my nephew says it tastes like static, which is an interesting, if not accurate, description. But a squeeze of citrus adds flavor, and my preference is lime. And lime essential oil made from the rind jazzes it up even more. Good carbs are called complex, and complex carbs are, more complex in their structure of starches and fiber, which means that your body has to work harder to break them down. So instead of cranking out a burst of sugar, it's a more steady, even keel flow. And that allows your metabolism to keep up and maintain steady levels of sugar in the bloodstream, and therefore stable energy levels. Another benefit of foods that digest more slowly is that the fiber keeps you feeling full longer so that you don't feel compelled to grab an unhealthy snack like sugar-sweetened, fat-laden yogurt or a protein bar, which can have up to 15 grams of added sugar. So read the label before you fall for the protein hook. Plus, complex carbohydrates are full of nutrients that your body needs. There's actually a rating scale to reflect whether a food is going to spike blood sugar or have the more desirable steady rise. It's called the Glycemic Index, and foods are rated on a scale of 1 to 100. Some people just use white bread as the reference point of anything that has a glycemic index above 70 or higher. Remember what I told you about the biscuit. And you also might remember my advice to swap whole wheat bread for white bread. And you should, but whole wheat is actually in the mid-range, which is 56 to 59. So while it's better than enriched, refined flour, if you really want to ratchet down the release of sugar into the bloodstream, choose foods with a low glycemic index of less than 55. I found a great graphic of the glycemic index of different foods that's made available by the Arkansas Heart Hospital. There's a link in the show notes, and I'll send it by email to those who get my weekly Next Steps newsletter. By the way, subscribing to my newsletter is a prerequisite to graduate from mini medical school. That way you won't miss an episode, plus you can sign up for my free 7-minute starter kit. This is a free tool that I created to help you build healthier habits in just 7 minutes a week. Because you can't take care of others if you don't take care of yourself. So sign up for that today at healthylooksgreatonyou.com, and then each week I'll share one simple next step to move you forward in your journey to better health. That's the 7-minute starter kit at healthylooksgreatonyou.com. But if you're one of those people who just want the cliff notes to keep blood sugar levels stable, eat a diet rich in fiber. Think beans, lentils, non-starchy vegetables, and most fruits have a medium glycemic index. According to the Mayo Clinic, eating a diet with low glycemic index foods can help you lose weight, lower blood pressure, lower cholesterol, and lower the risk of type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. And if you already have diabetes, it can help manage your blood sugar. And here's the deal. All of those foods have fiber and nutrients that your body needs for overall health. Plus, don't eat your carbs, even the good ones, alone. I'm not talking about the number of people sitting around your dinner table. I'm talking about your plate. A well-balanced diet consists of carbs, protein, and fat, and you need all three. If math is your favorite subject, remember, protein and carbs both contain the same number of kilocalories per gram, 4. But fat contains 9 kilocalories per gram. And just like there are healthy carbs and unhealthy carbs, there are healthy fats and unhealthy fats. Saturated fat tends to increase your cholesterol and your risk for cardiovascular disease. So choose unsaturated fat instead. Use oils instead of butter, hummus instead of cheese, and avocado instead of mayonnaise. And portion size matters when it comes to blood sugar spikes. If you drink a 20-ounce soda, that's going to cause a greater spike than a kitty cup of ice cream, which also contains fat. Of course, you could go big and go home in a sugar coma by combining that ice cream with soda, aka a Coke float. Yikes. And look, you need protein too. Pairing carbs with protein helps blunt the rise in blood sugar. Protein takes longer to digest, up to 3 to 4 hours. Protein found in beans and nuts is healthier than adding bacon or processed meats. And there's some evidence that the order that you work through your plate matters. So when you pick up your fork, start with fiber, then move on to protein and fat, and save your carbs for last. No, I'm not talking about chocolate cake. put your fork down on that one, or you might experience a condition that I am all too familiar with. Eater's remorse. I only intended to eat a few bites of that strawberry shortcake and ice cream, but it tasted so good I ate the whole plate full. Then my head hurt, and I was formally diagnosed with the medical condition that we discussed earlier. Blah. In fact, blah, blah, blah. The end result was that I regretted what I had eaten, or at least decided it wasn't worth it the way it made me feel. But once it's done, it's done. Now, while that's true, that doesn't mean there's nothing you can do. So here's a recipe for treating eater's remorse. Go for a walk. Using your muscles can help lower that blood sugar spike. If you can't go for a walk, do calf raises. And just add water. Drinking water can help your kidneys flush away all the extra sugar. And eat a small handful of nuts. They contain protein, healthy fat, and fiber. But an ounce of prevention really is better, and beans are the ideal food to prevent blood sugar spikes. Think of them as the whole package. Complex carbohydrates, fiber-rich with resistant starches that feed the good bacteria in your gut, and they're packed with protein. They slow digestion so that your blood sugar levels are more stable. If you want to avoid blood sugar spikes and crashes, eat more beans, move more, get a good night's sleep, and manage stress. I know, that's not easy, but that's why I'm here. I've been experimenting in the kitchen, and I created a Bean-a-Colada. Hear me out. Beans are great for stabilizing blood sugar, but in the United States, it's pretty uncommon to eat them for breakfast. Presenting the Bean-a-Colada. A can of white beans, frozen pineapple, unsweetened soy milk, coconut, a splash of lime juice, almond extract, and a pinch of salt. I'll share my recipe in the newsletter for the next couple of weeks. Pineapple also helps promote sleep because it contains melatonin, tryptophan, and bromelain. Beans promote stable blood sugar, and tasting a tropical Bean-a-Colada in the morning might set the tone for a no worries, be happy kind of day. Hey, it's worth a try. Stable blood sugar is important for better health, and healthy looks great on you.
The information contained in this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not considered to be a substitute for medical advice. You should continue to follow up with your physician or healthcare provider and take medication as prescribed. Though the information in this podcast is evidence-based, new research may develop and recommendations may change.